Welcome back to the Midnight Narrator, where the fragile constellations of family life are shattered by unseen forces, and the monsters we fear most often wear familiar faces. Tonight, we explore a chilling tale of a childhood haunted by addiction, a sister's fierce love, and the terrifying moment when the lines between reality and delusion irrevocably blur. Prepare to confront a darkness that doesn't lurk in shadows, but resides within the heart of a home, and a truth more devastating than any fabricated nightmare. Join me as we unravel the haunting story of Fabricated Constellations. Turn down the lights, listen closely, and remember that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we love the most. Dependence gradually consumed our mom, lulling her into its depths, a slow descent into the very fibers of her bed. When her rear teeth loosened and fell, she left them on the edge of the porcelain tub. I was just past my 6th birthday, and I collected them in a small box, the lost fragments of her kept secure to prevent her complete disappearance. Perhaps, I reasoned, we might someday reassemble her. Our home seemed to crumble around us, and we did our best to nurture ourselves. The ceilings bore the marks of water damage, and the lower steps were plagued by wood decay, and in the cold months, the heating units would weep rust-colored fluid. Yet it remained our dwelling, and Annie transformed it into a sanctuary. My older sister, Annie, became my caretaker, applying askew bandages to scraped knees and offering tepid meals warmed in the microwave. She recounted spectral tales and didn't object when I sought refuge in her bed late into the night, too frightened to sleep in solitude. She instructed me in dance, barefoot on the worn living room rug, the music television channel turned up, vibrating our young hips before they were fully formed. She invariably allowed me the first use of the shower, ensuring hot water, never uttering complaint at the subsequent cold. She brushed my hair daily before school, even amidst my protests and struggles against the snarls. Annie had dark hair, inherited from her father, a figure of mystery while I was fair-haired. Annie longed to be blonde too, like the iconic Marilyn Monroe. Like Mom, I believe she imagined it would forge a closer bond, diminish Mom's memory of Annie's absent father. I would give anything for the sensation of her hands in my hair again, even the slight pain. She relocated to New York upon my 18th birthday and never returned. I still dream of her occasionally. Trying to keep pace with our mother was futile, and we grasped early on that we would perpetually be left behind. This understanding offered little comfort. In her moments of lighter drinking, she radiated light, rousing us at dawn with stacks of griddle cake saturated in crimson syrup. Sometimes, when the weather was agreeable and her solitary intoxication grew tiresome, she would feign illness to our school, claiming summer ailments for us both. And instead, we would journey to the shore. I recall being 9, riding in the back seat after one of these seaside escapes, savoring the salt from my fingertips. Annie had just lightened her hair, her closest friend Jane, assisting over our kitchen sink. Seen from behind, distinguishing mother from daughter was difficult, the car radio loud, the windows down, bringing the expanse of the sky inside. During periods of heavier drinking, she would vanish for entire nights, her hair piled high, reminiscent of a pageant winner, her eyes glazed and encircled by shimmer and dark liner. Sometimes her absences stretched to a day or two. She never announced these departures. We would simply awaken to an empty house and a refrigerator filled to capacity, a note adhered to the door with a lipstick-stained kiss outline, assuring us of her swift return. Occasionally she brought men home, accumulating beverage cans and ashtrays on the table, smoke rising to the ceiling, Mom lost within the haze. We would seek refuge under pillows, attempting to mute the amplified music that stretched into the early hours, and then awaken to unfamiliar faces at our kitchen table, inquiring about the coffee supply. When Mom's drinking was minimal, she seemed to unravel. She neglected grocery shopping, the refrigerator becoming a barren void. She smoked incessantly, leaving scorch marks from cigarettes on the wallpaper near the staircase as if the walls themselves were ailing. She rarely slept, marked by dark circles under her eyes, her knuckles roughened. Even in these moments of forced sobriety, her eyes held a lost quality, a distant sadness that seemed to deepen the silence in the house. The slightest provocation would trigger her anger. I remember an incident when spilled fruit juice marred the couch. She glanced at me with lifeless eyes, pulled me onto the rug, and then proceeded to remove every cushion from the sofa, carrying them to the yard to ignite them. Annie observed from the window for a time, then settled beside me on the floor, our backs against the bare frame, her head resting gently in the hollow of my collarbone. In moments of excessive drinking, Mom's laughter became exaggerated and prolonged, triggered by anything and nothing until her mouth trembled and tears began to flow, even at breakfast, into her morning cereal. Annie retreated inward during these episodes, seeking a deep inner space untouched by pain. She would stay awake through the night, watching vintage black and white films, murmuring familiar lines like sacred verses. As a child of 5, I would weep upon discovering Mom unconscious on her bed, convinced she would never reawaken. Annie would dry my tears, reassuring me she was merely sleeping like the princesses in my storybooks. We would sit together on Mom's bed, awaiting her return to consciousness. As we grew older, I became the one to lift Mom from the bathroom floor repeatedly, while Annie would guide her to bed, tenderly smoothing hair from her face and cleaning vomit from her mouth, changing soiled clothing. Observing them in these moments, it was clear Annie had become the maternal figure. It was October. I was 13, Annie 16. A Wednesday night, and Mom had been gone for 48 hours. She'd called that morning from a public phone, her voice thick with drink, informing us of her wonderful time with new acquaintances, hoping we were managing well. When she inquired if I was enjoying my birthday, I disconnected the call. My birthday had been the preceding day. Annie had presented me with a collection of gifts, flavored lip glosses and sparkling nail enamels. I didn't question the source of her funds. It was inconsequential. We had ridden the bus to the beach with Jane, sharing the frosted cake she'd baked, grains of sand mixing with the sweetness. It tasted of sugar and sea, and I savored each morsel, each grain of sugar against my teeth. We watched the sunset, Annie capturing grainy images on her outdated phone as I extinguished my candles, wishing repeatedly for Mom's permanent absence. But that Wednesday evening, Annie and I were not on speaking terms. Tension hung palpably between us, permeating the floorboards. It had begun when she stumbled at the base of the stairs. We had both laughed, Annie tilting her head back, the gap between her front teeth catching the light. When I moved to assist her, I caught her breath, warm against my freckled skin. I released her arms, and she fell again, landing with a grin, tossing her hair from her face. Her breath was heavy with spirits. I couldn't bear to lift her too, couldn't witness her repeated falls. Just like Mom, I sensed she might never rise again. I gazed down at her, blonde hair obscuring her eyes, and all I perceived was our mother. And then I was running, my footsteps echoing like liberated heartbeats in the hallway. I fled to the kitchen and emptied every bottle we owned down the drain, pushing past Annie as she attempted to stop me, catching the liquor on her hands as it poured away. She grasped my shoulders, forcing me to drop the final bottle. It shattered between us on the floor, glass fragments gleaming as if we had pulled stars from the heavens and broken them. Irreparable pieces. Outside, through the open window, the sky shifted to pale gold, clouds a swirl of pink and cream across the horizon. I wept then, watching Annie on her knees gathering the shards. That was Annie, perpetually attempting to mend things, even when too late. The scent of food drew me from my room, my stomach betraying me with hunger. Annie was preparing pasta, real food, not microwaved. She had set the table, soft music playing from the disc player, Annie gently swaying as she stirred the rich, warm tomato sauce. As we ate in silence with each bite, forgiveness grew. Mom never cooked dinner, nor remembered my lifelong fondness for spaghetti, nor remained sober long enough to share a meal at the table. Annie was not Mom. We were washing dishes when we first detected it. A moth crawled on the window, and I opened it to release it into the darkness. From the yard came a faint sound. I paused, listening. It seemed distant. Crying. I assumed it was Mika, the toddler next door, having a loud outburst or perhaps lucky strike, the neglected cat from down the street. begging for food as he sometimes did. I often wanted to feed him when he approached, weaving around my ankles, but Annie always intervened, saying that once you began giving, they never ceased taking. Reflecting now, I realized she wasn't referring only to the cat. Annie activated the string lights around the porch and we settled into plastic chairs, observing the night sky. In childhood, we would sit outside, and Annie would name constellations and invent tales of their celestial origins. I later learned she fabricated them all. It was a game we still enjoyed, crafting absurd narratives for the shapes we discerned. Ah, yes, that one is the beverage container, placed there when a deity dropped it from a moving convertible and never retrieved it, she stated, nodding knowingly, concealing a smile. Indeed, I replied, gesturing towards the power lines, directly adjacent to the ashtray abandoned by celestial beings during a smoking pause. Yes, legend has it wishes made upon it come true, Annie said, grinning. Her smile faded, her voice softening as she gazed at the distant stars. Let's make a wish, Em. Let's wish. And so we did. The sound of weeping interrupted us, closer now and undeniably human. We turned, puzzled. Annie shrugged and I peered into the dark. It sounded like an infant, lost, exhausted, and isolated. Must be Mika, I suggested, rising. Maybe he wandered around back. Should we alert Connie, offer to take him home? Annie remained silent. I sighed, rolling my eyes. Guess I'll handle everything then. I stepped off the porch, the grass yielding beneath my feet. The air hinted at rain, fresh, clean, and pregnant with potential, a promise yet to be fulfilled. Em. Annie's voice was strained. I turned, smiling, but it faltered at her expression. Em, get inside now. She was staring into the darkness past me, opening the door with one hand, her fingers fumbling with the latch. I froze, barefoot on the soil, my gaze following hers. In the shrubs by the back fence, something moved with a jerky stillness, an unnatural posture even before the sound reached us, curled into a tight ball, arms wrapped around legs. Its mouth moved wide, silently opening and closing as it wept. Like a child lost in the dark. Yet not like a child, but something imitating, mimicking the sound, open and closed in the darkness. Abruptly it straightened, face still hidden by shadow, tall and gaunt, too thin for normalcy. Panic propelled me into motion, primal instinct urging me forward. I outpaced Annie, pulling her inside, slamming and locking the door, hearing it rebound on its frame. We watched as the figure advanced towards the house, steps measured and elongated. Annie seized my hand, holding it tightly, turning me to face her, gripping my shoulders. Don't look back, Emmy. Don't look back. Instinctively, I started to glance over my shoulder into the darkness. Annie grasped my face firmly, shaking her head. I knew then her fear was real. Her voice cracked, and she cleared her throat, her grip tightening, nails digging in, grounding herself. I focused on our joined hands, our fingers intertwined, grown from the same origin. I'm going to call the police and everything will be. Her voice wavered, faltering. Tears welled and spilled, like the promised rain. Annie never cried. Your phone's on the porch, she whispered, and nausea rose in my throat. Her phone was upstairs, charging. A soft, rhythmic tapping filled the silence. Annie turned to the window, the whites of her widened eyes prominent. It was the sound of a forehead against glass, slow, repetitive. The pace quickened, skin striking glass faster, harder until the window vibrated. The tapping ceased just as I was about to ask Annie if I could look. Then she screamed, followed by the sound of cracking glass and a violent impact. Whatever was outside had just smashed its face into the window, shattering it. We bolted upstairs 2 steps at a time, instinctively avoiding the weakened ones. I glanced back once, but Annie yanked my face forward. The sound of shattering glass echoed below as we reached the bathroom, securing the lock. A thin, mournful cry like a child seeking its mother filled the hallway, trapped between walls and locked doors. Annie braced her back against the door, feet against the tub, clutching the kitchen knife. I mirrored her position, shoulder to shoulder. Slow footsteps ascended the stairs, deliberate, casual. The weeping shifted, becoming mocking, almost laughter. Shrill bursts, then giggles, abruptly ceasing before restarting. The first room on the upper floor was my bedroom. We heard its door flung open. It was searching for us. "What in the world is happening?" I asked Annie, tears streaming freely. I watched my sister straighten, bracing her hands against the door as a second door slammed open. Mom's room. The bathroom was next. Annie pulled me up, thrusting the knife into my hand. I recoiled, pushing it back, terrified at the prospect of using it. Annie pushed me again, forcing the knife into my grip, her thumb pressing hard enough on the blade to draw blood. I saw her blood bead and trickle, a red path down her wrist, yet she persisted. I took the knife. Something slammed against the wall Mom's room shared with the bathroom, followed by a high-pitched wail. I held my breath, feeling my heart pound in my throat. "I'm getting the phone from my room." I shook my head, about to protest. Annie clamped a hand over my mouth. I tasted blood on her hand, salty and sweet like seaside birthday cake. "Yes. I'm getting the phone, calling the police, and we'll be all right." I shook my head again. "It's the only way. When I go, lock the door and don't open it for anyone. Not for me, not for anyone. Promise?" I shook my head. Annie pressing harder, her hand crushing my lips against my teeth until my eyes teared. "Yes. Promise me, Em." Something crashed in the next room. Annie brushed hair from my face, gently tucking it behind my ear. "Promise," she mouthed, and slowly unlocked the door, the bolt scraping faintly. I watched her shoulder vanish into the black hallway like a moon in shadow. Then she was gone. I froze, unable to move or breathe, then slammed the bolt, just as something struck the door outside. A piercing scream followed, the handle rattling violently, a screw popping loose and rolling towards me on the tiles. Then silence. I sat, back against the door, clutching the knife, wishing for Annie's hand instead. Still silence, only my breath filling the room. "Em?" A voice through the door. I startled, gripping the knife. "Honey, what's wrong?" "Mom?" My voice cracked. "Mama, is that you?" I wrapped my arms around myself, shaking, trying to remain still. "Sweetheart, it's okay. Open the door. It's all right. Just let me in." The handle rattled again, gently. "Just let me in. It's all okay." She pounded on the door, and my hand moved towards the bolt. "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I missed your birthday. I'm a terrible mother. Please." Her voice broke, and she began to sob. "Just let me in, baby. I'm so sorry." I squeezed my eyes shut. She sounded so lost and pained. I longed for her embrace like when I was small and came in from play with a scraped knee. Perhaps this time she meant it. Maybe everything could be all right. My hand touched the bolt again. My sister's voice came through the door, warm and gentle. "Yes, Emily, let us in. It's all right." My hand froze on the bolt, my grip on the knife tightening. Annie never used my full name. A fist struck the door, the handle rattling. "Emily, let us in." Annie's voice deepened, guttural, followed by the same shrill giggles. Mom's voice resumed, pleading, weeping, escalating in volume. "Let us in. Let us in," repeated endlessly, punctuated by her pounding fists. I thought of shadows and specters, the bedtime terrors we pray don't emerge. "That's not my sister, and you're not my mother," I shouted through the door, covering my ears. I retreated into the tub, curling into myself, clutching the knife. I didn't know what was outside, but it wasn't Annie. Not the voice that argued over television channels, that sang happy birthday, that praised my intellect even with poor grades, that read tales of princesses who never awoke. It wasn't human. Pounding and shouts erupted downstairs, followed by rapid footsteps. A low, animalistic howl tore through the house, overwhelming the room until I felt submerged in sound. Then the bathroom door splintered inward. I screamed, covering my eyes, anticipating the end. Arms found me, lifting me from the tub, carrying me from the room. I glanced at the shattered door as I was carried down. It was scored with long claw marks, dragging towards the floor. Torn pillows littered the hallway like indoor snowfall. I watched the feathers drift as uniformed figures examined each ravaged room. Outside, police vehicles and an ambulance filled the driveway. In the center stood Annie, bathed in the alternating red and blue light, illuminated in the dark like a luminous figure, her face radiant. I leapt from the officer's grasp and ran to her, embracing, holding us together, broken pieces and all under the fabricated constellations. Faint cries emanated from the rocking ambulance. Annie gently turned my head away, a sad smile causing my chest to ache with understanding. There was no specter, no beast, no malicious intruder. Only Mom, lost in a haze of alcohol and drugs, at the culmination of a week-long spiral. Something had fractured within her, irreparable this time, despite our efforts. Some falls are final. Annie had seen her in the yard, blood trickling from her mouth, needle marks prominent on her arms, gaunt and desperate for one more dose, one more relief. She had searched for the discarded alcohol and, failing to find it, sought her hidden stash in the bathroom. She hadn't wanted me, only the substances beyond the door, so altered she could almost perfectly mimic Annie's voice. It turned out the true terrors are the gradual destroyers, those that arrive in liquid form, in syringes, or in the relentless reasons that keep you from facing the day. Sometimes the monsters are those who raise you, who love you most. But the choice to admit them remains yours. And there we conclude our heartbreaking and unsettling journey into Fabricated Constellations, a story that delves into the devastating impact of addiction, the strength of familial bonds in the face of unimaginable hardship, and the terrifying reality that sometimes the monsters we fight are not supernatural, but tragically human. What happens when the very person who should protect us becomes the source of our deepest fears? How do we choose to see the truth even when it threatens to break us? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If this tale has left you with a lingering sense of unease and a profound sense of empathy, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to join us on future journeys into the darkness. This is the Midnight Narrator signing off. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most unforgettable mysteries are the ones we must solve within ourselves, acknowledging the harsh realities that illuminate our fabricated constellations.